This week on Hometown Ghost Stories, the Bridgewater Triangle is a region in southeastern Massachusetts covering roughly 200 square miles. This area gained notoriety due to the numerous reports of incidents of strange phenomena ranging from UFO sightings to ghost sightings to unexplained animal mutations and encounters with Bigfoot and other cryptids. The points of the triangle are marked by the towns of Abington, Freetown, and Rehoboth, forming a triangle-shaped area. This area of Massachusetts has become infamous for the heightened levels of paranormal activity for centuries. In this episode, we'll dive into the Freetown State Forest and the hitchhiker of Route 44. We'll also tell you the true story of something dark and evil that tormented a Rainham family for years. This is Hometown Ghost Stories, the Bridgewater Triangle, Part 1.
Hometown Ghost Stories contains serious and often distressing events and is not intended for all audiences. Viewer discretion is advised.
Rehoboth, Massachusetts, November 2nd, 1978. Jamie and her friend Sharon got into her 1968 Chevrolet Impala. They were headed to a local bar a few towns away to celebrate a friend's birthday. As they headed down the dark, barely lit Route 44, Sharon turned to Jamie and asked, "Do you think Joe's going to be there?" "I don't know. Didn't you call him?" Jamie said. "Yeah, like 10 times, but the line was always busy." Sharon responded, defeated. As she was finishing her line, something up ahead on the side of the road caught her attention. A rather tall man, at least 6 feet tall, was walking down the road with his thumb in the air. Something came over Jamie, and she pulled over about 30 feet in front of the man. "The hell are you doing?" Sharon snapped at her friend. "It's like 20 degrees out. We can't leave him out here," Jamie responded. The man approached the car, and Jamie stuck her head out the window. "Do you need a ride, mister? We're heading as far as Rainham." The man nodded quickly and approached the back door. Sharon stared daggers at Jamie before reaching in the back seat to pop the lock up. The man looked to be in his late 30s or early 40s. He had on a pair of old blue jeans and a red flannel shirt. What stood out to Jamie about his appearance, though, was the bright long red hair and beard. The man grabbed the handle and button on the car door and squeezed his tall frame inside. In a low voice, he simply said to the girls, "Thank you." "Somewhere we can drop you?" Jamie said while pulling back onto the road. The man didn't respond. "You're welcome to take the ride to Rainham if that gets you part of the way that you're going." The man let out an audible grunt. "Okay, Rainham it is," Sharon said while giving another uncomfortable look in the direction of Jamie. For the next few minutes, they rode in complete silence. Jamie kept stealing glances through the rearview mirror, but the man was just sitting there with a blank expression, staring out the window. As they headed down the road, the radio turned on by itself and started to quickly flip through all the stations. "What the hell? It's never done that," Jamie said, a bit startled. Suddenly, the once quiet lumberjack of a man in the back seat let out a bellowing, almost evil laugh. Jamie looked in the rearview mirror while Sharon looked over her shoulder. The once normal-looking man's shirt was now disheveled. Buttons popped open, a stain on his undershirt. The well-groomed beard was now sticking out in all directions. The man's hair also doing the same. But what caught their attention more than anything were the eyes. The man's eyes were now pitch black as the evil-sounding laughter filled the car. Jamie quickly pulled off the road and parked. Sharon and her jumped out and stood in front of the car as the headlights and moon shined on them. They hugged each other and looked back towards the car. Both of their jaws dropped. The car was empty. as the women stood there, puzzled, wondering if they had just imagined the whole ordeal. Something rustled in the tree line, about 10 feet away from them. Then, they heard the bellowing laugh echo from the forest. I'm Rob Coakley, and this is Hometown Ghost Stories, the Bridgewater Triangle, Massachusetts.
Raynham, Massachusetts, 2010. Courtney stormed up the creaky old stairs to her bedroom and slammed the door. She had just been on the losing end of an argument over laundry with her mother. She was alone in her room, spitefully folding laundry, now thinking about all of the witty things she could have said during the argument if only she had thought of them at the time. She always had an uncomfortable feeling while being alone in that room, especially with the door shut. She wouldn't have shut it at all, except that she felt the need to punctuate the argument with a symbolic door slam. Odd things would happen in that room. Sometimes she would hear something run up the stairs, but when she would look to see, nothing would be there. Other times, her friends would complain of the feeling of being watched by some nameless, invisible presence. She looked down at the laundry she was folding. Anger folding wasn't the best method, as she noted that the folded pile was pretty much indistinguishable from the unfolded pile. Just then, she heard her mother call something up to her from downstairs. She sighed in frustration and shoved the folded pile over. She turned to the door and opened her mouth to yell something back, but as she did so, she felt the hairs on the back of her neck stand up and something harshly whispered, "Shh," directly into her ear. She gasped and whirled around to find nothing in the room with her, no source to the sound. She backed into the wall and immediately heard a strange crackling sound, like dirt being dislodged and spilling down the wall. She spun around to see the wall erupting with thousands of bugs spilling out and flying around the room. Screaming, she ran from the room and down the stairs into the kitchen. Her panicked mother, alarmed by Courtney's terror, asked her what happened. Courtney gestured wildly towards the stairs, and together they ascended, half expecting the buzzing cacophony of demonic insects to swarm and consume them, but to her shock, they found the room completely devoid of any bugs. Nestled right in the heart of the Bridgewater Triangle, at the highest point in the town of Raynham, Massachusetts, stood a centuries-old and exceedingly haunted house. It sat for centuries on the shady corner of Orchard and Judson Street. According to the deed, the house was built in 1680, 51 years before the town of Raynham even existed. At the time it was built, it was part of the much larger city of Taunton. However, the year 1731 witnessed a defining moment in the area's history when influential figures from among Raynham's founding families embarked on a determined quest for independence. They ardently petitioned the Massachusetts General Court on 3 distinct occasions, ultimately succeeding in their endeavor to liberate the town from the city of Taunton. The town of Raynham played a key part in both the King Philip's War as well as the American Revolution. Taunton residents James and Henry Leonard, who established the first successful ironworks in the area, forged a friendship with King Philip before the war began. It is said that Philip agreed to spare the town from mass destruction if the Leonards repaired his troops' weapons in their iron forge. During the American Revolution, the little old house on Orchard Street served as a quartering house for soldiers in the area. There was also a period of time where the house was used as a pony express. The house had an attic window that sat over a lower roofline. In the early 20th century, while the nation was fighting its First World War, a family with a 4-year-old child lived in the house. One day, while the child was playing in the upstairs room, she managed to climb out the window onto the roof, where she tragically fell to her death. The family that owns the property now purchased it back in 1947, and over the course of their residence there, witnessed many, many hauntings. It's believed that several spirits haunted the house over the years. The ghost of a soldier has been known to appear in the root cellar, while the ghost of a child made its presence known on several occasions in the upstairs bedroom. Members of the family also believe that a malign entity also resides in that house. Several family members used to witness phantom footsteps going up and down the stairs in the kitchen, noting the 4th step would creak when stepped on,
There would be no other reason that step would creak unless significant weight were applied to it, so when the ghostly footsteps would sound, the distinct creak of that fourth step was particularly unsettling. The house remained in the family for 8 decades, passed down from generation to generation, each with different yet similar haunting experiences. Many family members would recount the feeling of being touched or poked by some unseen presence. Jean and her daughter, who lived in the house during the 70s and 80s, often noted the smell of wood smoke permeating the air without cause. Often this would be alarming, causing family members to frantically search for a fire, but none would ever be found. Over the years, 2 other houses were built on the property, creating a family compound. One morning in 2004, Caitlin, one of the cousins who lived in the house next door, was staying over for a week while her parents were away. A sophomore in high school, she was up around 6 a.m. with the rising sun to get ready for school. She was in the upstairs bathroom, a cubbyhole room with an impossibly small sink and a grainy old mirror that hardly provided a workable reflection to properly apply her makeup. There was an old light bulb that stuck out the slanted wooden wall that gave off just enough light to fill the dark little room. Suddenly, the energy in the room shifted, and the little light bulb dimmed ominously and started humming. Caitlin got spooked and ran out of the bathroom. Just as she turned out of the doorway, she saw the dark silhouette of a person glide across the room, past the windows, before disappearing into the attic door. In 2011, Jennifer's daughter Courtney found herself in an unsettling babysitting situation. She was tasked with looking after her 3-year-old cousin Joshua on a quiet afternoon. The two were sitting in the upstairs bedroom when suddenly Joshua began engaging in conversation with an unseen presence in the closet. Alarmed, Courtney's curiosity overcame her initial fear, and she asked him, "Who are you talking to?" With an innocent sincerity, Joshua replied, "The little girl." The words sent an icy shiver down Courtney's spine, leaving her pale with dread. Without hesitation, she urged Joshua to join her outside. Desiring nothing more than to not be in that room anymore, she reached out to grab his hand, but he resisted. He called out to the shadowy closet, asking the little girl if she wanted to come outside and play. Courtney didn't wait for the ghost girl to respond. She scooped up Joshua and hurried down the stairs, away from whatever unnatural presence was lurking in that closet. Throughout the years, the family witnessed countless hauntings. Jennifer, who was the final owner of the house, said, quote, "It was a never-ending barrage of moved items, missing things found in weird places, voices with no speakers, fear of nothing, freaked out animals, lights on and off, the cellar door opening and closing, and being touched on the shoulder, upper arm, or head, which was honestly one of the worst things." The house no longer stands on that shady corner. In 2016, there was a sudden electrical fire which resulted in a total loss. Thankfully, nobody was killed in the fire, but it was still a devastating tragedy for the family who occupied it for nearly a century. Although the physical structure is gone, the memories etched within its walls remain, and it's hard not to wonder if that lingering phantom smell of smoke might have been a foreboding omen, a message from the other side.
September 8th, 1978. Mary Lou Arruda's bicycle was found near her house around 4:30 p.m. The 15-year-old girl was nowhere to be found. Her family immediately started making phone calls to any and everyone who may have seen her. They notified the Raynham police to let them know that their daughter had been missing for nearly 2 hours. The police immediately took note of the location of the bike. It was right on the edge of the Freetown State Forest. In recent months, there had been reports of a satanic cult who were performing violent rituals in the forest. Investigators discovered children's clothing, as well as several dolls who had their eyes and heads removed. Detectives remained hopeful that there may have been another explanation for her disappearance, but the family was convinced that she wasn't the type to just run off or leave her bike sitting in the dirt. Next to the abandoned bike, police noticed a tire track, as well as a cigarette that they collected as evidence, as it wasn't fully smoked. It seemed that whoever lit the cigarette discarded it in a hurry. The Raynham police called in the FBI to assist in the investigation. Hundreds of people joined together to search the forest. They continued to uncover more and more unsettling evidence of cult activity, including mutilated cattle, as well as other dead animals. Pentagrams were on the ground, and a cross covered in blood with bindings close by. It was clear that somebody was tied to the cross at some point. They sent the blood samples off to be analyzed. Forensic results revealed that the blood was, in fact, human, but it was not a match for Mary Lou. After 2 weeks, the family's worst nightmare became a reality. 2 dirt bikers rode by what they first thought was a Halloween decoration tied to a tree in the Freetown State Forest. They approached the grisly sight and left immediately to alert authorities. Mary Lou Arruda's decomposing body was found tied to a thin tree, fully clothed, bound by her wrists and neck with twine. Due to the advanced decomposition, they were unable to determine if she was sexually assaulted. The cause of death was strangulation. They found no evidence at the crime scene to identify the killer. There was also no evidence to link her death to the satanic cult. Medical examiners determined that she was still alive when tied to the tree and died the same day that she went missing. Witnesses came forward and reported seeing a green car in the area where she disappeared, with one reporting that she saw the vehicle speeding off from the location where Mary Lou's bike was found. Investigators began to close in on a man named James Cater. He had previously been involved with an attempted murder of a 13-year-old girl. She too was abducted while riding her bike. She was dragged into the woods, sexually assaulted, and tied to a tree. The cases were almost identical, even down to the type of twine that was used. The only difference in this case was that the first victim survived the attack. James had used a bed sheet in this case to tie around her neck instead of the twine. Once he left the scene, she was able to escape. James Cater was released after just 6 years of his 20-plus year sentence. After being released from prison, he got a job at a donut shop just 4 miles from where Mary Lou would be abducted. Police also realized that he drove a vehicle matching the witnesses' descriptions. He was also a dead ringer for the composite sketches. James Cater would be found guilty of murdering Mary Lou Arruda, but the conviction would later be overturned due to the use of hypnosis on one of the witnesses to obtain part of his license plate number. In 1986, he would be tried again and found guilty, but this conviction would also be overturned as well. In total, the case would go to court 4 times. In the 4th trial, the judge finally allowed Cater's first victim, Jacqueline Boudier, to testify. In this case, Cater admitted to every vile act he did to his first victim, but he denied any involvement in the case with Mary Lou. Finally, he would be found guilty in 2002 and sentenced to life in prison. James Cater would die 2 years later of natural causes. The horrific case continues to haunt the town of Raynham to this day. Locals who live on the outskirts of the forest claim that the forest screams. Many believe that these sounds are paranormal, coming from the ghosts in the woods, and some believe that these are the ghostly screams of Mary Lou. At least 3 more murders were related to the state forest. In 1987, a drifter was mistaken for an undercover police officer and was murdered in the woods. 2 men were found shot to death in 2001 on Bell Rock Road. It's believed that the Fall River cult murderers, Carl Drew and Robin Murphy, conducted rituals in the forest and may have been the ones to construct a mysterious torture hut deep in the woods. The head of at least one of their victims was actually discovered inside the Freetown State Forest. Visitors to the Assonet Ledge claim that this is one of the most haunted locations in the forest. People report seeing strange glowing lights and phantom fires. And most concerningly, some of those who approach the edge claim to feel a driving force within them, telling them to jump off. This is the site of at least 18 suicides and multiple accidental deaths. Other hauntings and strange activity inside the Freetown State Forest include UFO sightings, Bigfoot sightings, and ghostly figures that dart between the trees, in and out of sight. Some of the hauntings in the Freetown State Forest date back to its earliest days, when the Wampanoag Native Americans used the area as sacred burial grounds. It's believed that the entire land is cursed, and the restless spirits inside the forest will continue to haunt the grounds forever.
Perhaps the most famous ghost story within the Bridgewater Triangle is that of the red-headed hitchhiker of Route 44. The accounts of seeing him date back to the 1950s. He's usually spotted somewhere around the Rehoboth-Seekonk line on Route 44. He's generally seen hitchhiking or walking alongside the woods of the road. His appearance is generally described as the same by all that see him. A man about 6 feet tall, wearing a red flannel shirt and blue jeans, with red hair and a red beard. Sometimes he appears well kempt, and other times he is completely disheveled. The most chilling detail that everybody brings up is that the hitchhiker has lifeless eyes. One of the first accounts is from the 1950s. A man traveling down the road at 40 miles per hour heard a noise hit the passenger side of his car. As he looked over, the face of a man was staring at him through the window. The man was terrified and continued to drive down the road, but the face kept pace with the car until it disappeared about a mile down the road. In the 1970s, a woman stopped to pick up a hitchhiking man. As he grabbed the door handle, he disappeared, and the woman's car died at the same time. She heard a sinister laugh come from the woods nearby. Several minutes later, she was able to get the car to start back up, but was so distraught she was unable to drive away until the police showed up. There have been multiple reports of the man being picked up, and as he enters the car, the driver asks where he's heading, to which he won't respond. As the driver continues to ask, they see him either disappear or he's already gone when they look back. The sinister laugh has also been known to accompany his disappearance from outside the car to these drivers. In one instance, the radio turned on, and the laugh came through the car's speakers as the stations scanned quickly through. Drivers haven't been the only ones that have reported the man. People walking through the woods near Route 44 have said to be stalked by a man with the same description. He's able to keep pace with them no matter how fast they're moving, and a few have claimed that when he gets close, he begins to laugh or taunt them while staring with dead, black eyes before simply fading away.
What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome into Hometown Ghost Stories, episode number 101. We're finally back in Bridgewater, covering the Bridgewater Triangle. I'm Jesse Wilkins. I'm joined by Rob Coakley. Hello, Rob.
I'm super excited to cover the Bridgewater Triangle, as right now, me and you are sitting inside of it, Jesse. But even more exciting, we get one of the cryptids to do the show with, our resident Pukwudgie, Dave.
Yes, I'm happy to be here, and I am the resident Pukwudgie.
Yes.
We do exist.
They do. We talked about Pukwudgies in the Oliver House episode when we covered Middleborough. Oliver House just outside of the Bridgewater Triangle, but it's close enough to mention it, and it is a place where they say that they do have Pukwudgies around the woods. If you're unfamiliar with what those are, we'll talk about those in a little bit, but I want to say what's up to everyone.
Dave. That's all you have to do. That's a Pukwudgie.
Dave with a little more fur. That's it. Yep. But today we're talking about the Bridgewater Triangle.
Yes. Episode 1 was Bridgewater, Massachusetts. Mm-hmm. Episode 101, the Bridgewater Triangle.
That's right. We've come full circle.
We
Where do you guys want to start?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, you went over the hitchhiker of Route 44 pretty extensively.
Mm-hmm.
I believe we briefly talk about that.
All right.
If you'd like to. Sorry, I wanted to stop talking there.
So the redheaded hitchhiker of Route 44 is the most famous ghost story within the Bridgewater Triangle, right? Like when you bring up Bridgewater Triangle, you're going to hear about Dave's Puckwudgies, you're going to hear about UFOs, and you're going to hear about the redheaded hitchhiker of Route 44. And I eventually want to do a whole episode just on hitchhiking ghosts because it feels like every region has their hitchhiking ghost. There is one in North Carolina that I've read about. Chicago has Mary. There's so many hitchhiking ghosts, but for us, it's the red-headed hitchhiker of Route 44, and he's on a very specific part of Route 44. He's like between Rehoboth and Dighton only. So like if you're traveling to Plymouth to go see us, you won't see him on that part of Route 44. You have to go all the way to the other side of Taunton, and it's a very scary part. Route 44 in Rehoboth and Dighton is a
It's
lot.
because the only person who lives there is that redheaded hitchhiker.
That's true. He is the only one. It should be very easy to narrow down who this redheaded hitchhiker was based on the fact the population is about 4 at all times in Dighton. So I don't know why we don't know exactly who he is, but he was a hitchhiker. Maybe he was coming from somewhere else. What I find the most interesting about the redheaded hitchhiker of Route 44, that's all the time we have, because if I have to keep saying this long name, we're not
Just call him Red.
Yeah, we'll call him Red. That's perfect. So Red, there are documented cases of seeing him from the 1950s in newspaper articles and stuff like that. That it's not just a recent phenomenon. Like, you know how sometimes you hear about these ghost stories and you think they're old, but the most recent stories you hear are from like 1995 and on. There are documented cases from the 1950s from multiple different people that weren't interacting with each other. And that's what I find compelling about this story. It's kind of, if you're from the area, it's very, very overplayed, but there is a lot of tangible evidence to discuss here in the terms of just so many different people seeing him throughout different time periods. And the stories are very creepy for a hitchhiker, because I always thought it was limited to the car, right? I always thought like you picked him up and basically he's sitting in your car and he disappears and leaves, was always the way I heard the story growing up. I was unaware that people that are like in the woods by Route 44 are encountering him as well. And he's basically stalking them through the woods.
Yeah, I had also never heard that. It's funny when you think you know something and then you start looking into it to cover it on an episode and you learn all these other different things about it. But for me, it adds more, I guess, consistency that if this ghost haunts that area, that you'd see it in other places, not just showing up in people's cars.
Yeah, it definitely makes a lot more sense in that aspect, that it's because he's covering a wide range, right? He's covering that section of Route 44 in between. And I wonder if there's like a barrier, because you know how they say he like disappears from the car?
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if there's almost like a barrier point that he's always disappearing from. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting to think about. I don't know.
I mean, I don't know if it's true or not or whatever. The other one that was like really creepy with this story, can you imagine you're driving down Route 44 in Dighton, Rehoboth, you got all the woods around you, and you hear something, and you're going about 40 miles an hour, and you look to your left, and in your window is just the face of this man staring at you, and he's just keeping pace with the car the entire time.
Imagine being able to run that fast and still look inside of a car window.
It's just
fast
Tyreek
as
Hill,
fuck, man.
It's
Yeah.
I do wonder if the person who told the story had red hair and a beard. He's just looking at his reflection.
Could be. That actually adds up. It does add up. Route 44 is a creepy road, even when you're going just from like Plymouth to Middleborough, which is basically most of 44 that I've traveled on. I have gone past as well, but there's no street lights. It's just a dark, creepy road, and it's updated too. Like they redid the whole Route 44 not that long ago, and even then they didn't add in street lights. It's just a dark, terrifying road, and it takes you away from like the hustle and bustle of Plymouth, and just kind of, as the further down you go on Route 44, it just kind of enters like redneck territory and all of a sudden it's all pickup trucks and broken down cars on the side of the road. It feels like all of a sudden you're on Route 66 or something like that.
Well,
So.
now you're talking about Route 79 in Middleborough, which is the real scary road. The untold scary road of Massachusetts is Route 79 over in Middleborough.
Do we have an origin story for this guy, or did I miss it?
No, there's no name associated with him, or why he's haunting, or even like a body was found or anything like that. But if he was a hitchhiker, it checks out, right? Because a number of different things can happen to hitchhikers. He could have gotten hit by a car as he's walking down the road and the body got hidden or something like that. So I don't know. I think there's so many, I think it checks out with hitchhikers in that sense that there's so many different reasons why they could be haunting that stretch of road that they're haunting or whatever. So I think you're going to get a lot of hitchhiking ghosts without origin stories. The other thing on Route 44, the Oliver House is right off of Route 44 as well. So
Very close.
yeah, it's like you turn down a road, it's the first house on the left off of Route 44. So very creepy road with a lot of history and a lot of, you feel really uneasy driving down that road at night. At least I do. You get right past, like you said, Jesse, you get right out of Plymouth, you're on that road, and it just feels like something is watching you from the tree lines all the way down Route 44. And then you get to Taunton where, sketchy neighborhoods over there. And then getting through Taunton, you get right back into that scary feeling of something watching you from the tree line. The whole road just is a terrifying experience.
It is. It is. All right, let's settle a debate here.
Okay.
It's Raynham.
Raynham or Raynham?
So I knew when I recorded the audio and I was pronouncing it Raynham that everybody from Raynham that listens to this is just going to get really annoyed because it's Raynham everywhere in the world unless you're from Raynham. Then it's Raynham, and there's no question.
There's a massive inconsistency with towns in Massachusetts, and I don't know if there's other ones like this around. I'm sure there are. There's a lot of borrowed names in different states and different countries, but you have Dedham, which is Dedham. It's not Deadham. You have Wareham, which is Wareham, not Wareham. You have Raynham or Raynham.
It's Raynham. It's Raynham.
It's all depends on the ham, I guess. So at Thanksgiving, are you going to have ham or him? I'm going to have ham. I'm going to have ham.
All right, I'm officially on Team Ham now too.
Okay, all right. So where do we lean here? I go Raynham.
I always just called it Raynham, and I lean into it hard now because my wife's whole family leans so hard the other way that I do it just to be annoying. So I don't really have a hard.
Do you guys see why Dave's a bad guy? Like, I don't think the chat understands.
This is the only reason.
We're uncovering things here tonight on episode 101. We got normal Dave for the first 100 episodes, and now the reasoning why Dave is actually the villain is going to start coming out over these next 100 episodes. And then we get the redemption arc.
Maybe. Probably not.
Probably not.
Okay,
I doubt
here's the redemption. All right, here's debate number 2. I'm sorry, Dave, were you going to finish?
Nope. Go ahead.
Okay. Debate number 2. Is it Impala or is it Impaler? What the fuck was that, Rob? You typed it correctly, but you
That's the Boston accent coming out. Boston accent completely.
I added an R?
Yeah, listen to me. Let me finish. Boston accent will completely drop, like a hard Boston accent, which you don't have, to be fair. Will drop all of the R's, but they will add them where they don't belong, like Aruba or Soder, things like that. This is like the old school Boston accent. I swear to God, it's a thing. You work in Boston.
The Boston accent's kind of dead. Like, you only get it with like some of the older folks that come in.
The Boston accent is actually in Rhode Island now.
Oh, is it a move?
It's Providence.
It's Providence. Providence is the actual Boston accent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, very few people that come in with a legitimate Boston accent, but they've all moved to Cava.
Right. So speaking of Raynham, this haunted house that we covered is my wife's was my wife's grandmother's house. It actually passed through like several generations. It was her great grandmother's house, then it was her grandmother's house, then it was her aunt's house. before it ended up burning down in 2016 or 17. And Kate has been trying to get me to cover this house since like episode 1. She's been like, you got to cover this house. And I've been like, yeah, I'll do it. So finally I was able to put it together, and I reached out to her cousin, Courtney, who I believe is in chat. And she talked to basically all of her friends that stayed there and compiled all these stories. And she sent me a ton of different ghost stories. I only included a couple in that opening part, but I got a whole bunch more. And some of them are really, really creepy. And this house is very haunted, I think. Now, when I'd been there a few times before it burnt down, several times actually, and Kate brought me in one time. It's like, you got to check out the root cellar. It's so creepy down there. And this was back when I was like a super hardline skeptic.
Where you're like, I'll sleep down there.
I'll sleep down there.
I'll sleep with the roots. Wrap me up in roots.
But I was like, all right, I want to check it out
because I'm going to sleep.
This house it's such an old house, and it's so. In the beginning, I said like the deed says it was built in 1680, but there's actually dates carved on the wood in like different boards in the house that are dated as old as I think 1620s. So they don't know if the house was actually older than the deed says it was, or my theory is that they might have used the boards from maybe a ship that had dates carved in it or something, and the dates were still there. Either way, house is 17th century. So she says, you got to come down to this basement and see how creepy it is. So I'm like, absolutely, I will go see this basement. So I go down there. She shows me this root cellar, and it's this really dark, dank, small area of the cellar where there's like a concrete or stone opening. I don't remember, it was a while ago, but I remember it was so dark in there. I took out my iPhone flashlight to shine the light around there, and it didn't do anything. Like the dark just absorbed all the light, and I got like a wicked weird feeling, and I'm just like, get me out of here. And I only lasted like 15 seconds down there before I was just uncomfortable. And she was like, what was that about? You don't believe it? What was that about? I'm like, I don't know. I can't explain it. I just don't want to be down there. So it was creepy. But
it is creepy. The flashlight thing is very strange. We need to be a little more brave next time, right, Dave? Just a week.
Yeah, exactly. So there is another house that was built that stands there now. And it's
Pops brings up a good point in chat. He says that not sure if there was a register of deeds back then. Maybe the house was dated when the register was founded. It's a good point because it is so long ago that that could be a thing.
Yep, very good. Yep, very good point. I think it's highly plausible that the house is older than 1680. Just that basement alone, because it was an old school stone basement, and it looked just really, really old. So it wouldn't surprise me either way. Fun fact about.
I was gonna say I never made it down to the basement. I've been to that house at least once during one of the 4th of July cookouts, but to me, I had no idea. I wish we knew, or I wish I knew anyways, because that would have been cool to check out.
Fun fact I stumbled across while I was researching Raynham, and the area that is now known as Raynham was settled in 1639 as part of Taunton and was founded by Elizabeth Pole, who was the first woman to settle a town in America, which I think is pretty cool.
That's a cool point.
Yes. So we have lots of ghost stories from this, and I was going to run through a couple of them. Courtney sent these over to me. This one was from her younger brother. He said, I went to take a nap midday and woke up to the feeling of being choked. I felt pressure around my neck and couldn't breathe for like 7 to 8 seconds. Another time, I remember vividly, I just got home from high school, called out, Mom, you home? And there was no answer. I put my backpack down and went to go upstairs to my room. On the 3rd step, I got goosebumps and stopped and heard a little girl cry upstairs. Then I ran out and went next door to Nana's. When I got back home later, thinking maybe it was just the TV left on for some reason, I found that the TV was off and Mom still wasn't home. So that's creepy. That's to hear a little girl's voice call out, and just that consistency with the ghost story from the little girl in the closet, which I believe that story was Josh, who was actually in chat also back when he was just a little boy. He's
reminds me a little bit of Rob's Bridgewater story with him hearing the voices and assuming it was the TV. Rob, have you ever told that story?
I've actually never told that story. You guys haven't heard it. Well, I'll tell you it on Thursday, Dave.
Yeah, I can't wait. I can't wait to hear it. We were actually just talking about that. We're like, Rob's gonna have to tell this Bridgewater story. We do this event in Plymouth next week, and I'm gonna put a gun in my mouth. I'll have to hear this story again. Oh man.
We were actually talking about how like we're just gonna have to tell it for the rest of our lives.
I
Like
know.
it just
This is our residual haunting.
it is. That
When
is
Rob dies, he's going to come back as a ghost, and his residual haunting is just going to be him telling his Bridgewater ghost story over and over again.
Am I gonna be the first ghost that's telling a ghost story?
I hope so.
Is this like Inception? Are we good? We have to make the Inception ghost story movie.
I think
Is
so.
what we have to make. So that's what's going on.
So another one from Courtney. She said, Lindsay and I would always sleep in the living room. On 2 different occasions, I remember waking up to someone playing with my hair. I felt the strands of my hair moving, and I remember looking up behind me and being so freaked out. So I ran to Nana's room, leaving poor Lindsay behind.
Wow.
gotta do what you gotta do.
Survival. You just gotta get into survival mode.
Yeah, you know whether you are fight or flight. We learned Courtney is flight, and that's totally fine.
Just like you did at Emily's Bridge.
Emily's Bridge, and straight out of that basement.
Yeah,
apparently I'm real flighty when it comes to ghosts too. Courtney also adds, one time I was in my room. I went to open the door and twisted the doorknob. Something on the other side stopped the handle and pulled back on the door. I immediately ran back to my bed and called my mom. That's a scary one.
Yeah.
Because if you feel that tug resisting against you, that's a tangible force, right? And it's interesting. There was a very similar story from the S.K. Pierce Mansion last week that reminded me of this one. So it's interesting to hear similarities.
You know what I was thinking about as you were telling this story, and not to make light of the situation, but every time we talk about a haunted place, I'm like, have you considered burning the house down? And it happened in this case. They burned the house down.
Yeah, they didn't burn it down.
Well, I know they didn't burn it down.
No, but it was weird. The fire was, it was an electrical fire. So I don't believe that anything paranormal had anything to do with the fire. It was very clear how the house burnt down. And,
well, the electronics were probably from like the 1600s, right? That's when the house was built. That's how that works.
Yeah, exactly. All the lights and
all the wiring.
Electricity was so popular back then.
Yeah, it's a big deal. It was a big deal. But the interesting connection that we had drawn was that there was that Kate's grandmother Jean. She had talked about this phantom smoke smell that would appear over the years, and Kate's grandfather confirmed that also. He used to smell it all the time, and they wouldn't be able to nail down where it was coming from. Obviously, there was never a fire, and then for that house to end that way, you wonder if that was sort of like an omen or like a foretelling or something like that.
Are there any plans to rebuild the house, to rebuild there? Because I'm curious if the hauntings are going to continue in a new house. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. So they said the hauntings haven't necessarily stopped. There's 3 houses on the property, and Kate's grandmother said that she still hears phantom, like disembodied voices in the house that's next door. So I don't know if the haunting moved, or I didn't ask if these were happening before the old house burnt down, but it would be interesting to find out. So I could definitely dig further into that, or somebody could answer me in the chat, because a lot of them are here too. If you know, let me know. But
well, there it is. There's your answer. It says yes, they are.
Yes, they are. What was? They are still happening, right?
Still happening.
2-party illusion. They have. I don't know who's who. I think this is Courtney here for the booze. I'm guessing. I could be wrong. But also, there are other stories. So Courtney says, I constantly felt like I was being watched, but it was only while living in that house. I lived in 2 other apartments before and 2 other apartments after that. It is a completely different feeling. The only other time I've ever had that feeling like outside that house was in an apartment I got with my dad, but it was the strongest in his room. Come to find out, somebody overdosed in that room. So I included that because I think it's fascinating to hear that there was such a strong consistency while she lived in that house, but never had those feelings before that house, and never had those feelings again after that house, except for one time she felt it in one room, and then later found out that somebody had died in that room. So that's a pretty strong consistency.
It's always jarring when you're like, well, what happened here? And you found out somebody died in the room that you're in. That's terrifying stuff to find out.
It's
Gotcha.
interesting because I've been talking to somebody who is a psychic over the past couple of weeks, and we've been having these discussions about going on these investigations. And she was asking me about, like, do I feel things when we go to these places? And I'm like, I've noticed that when we go to places, I go in certain rooms and I feel different. Like the one that sticks out more than any is the Oliver house when I went into that one specific room. But other places we've gone to, I've had that feeling as well. And I hadn't noticed it before we started doing this show, but like thinking back, I had that feeling every time I walked into my grandparents' house, and specifically on the second floor, right?
1,000%. 1,000%.
So, and she was asking me more so like how far it goes, because this psychic, she can see images of stuff that happened in the house, and then she finds out that a lot of the images she's seeing actually did happen there, or she gets confirmation of it. And I was telling her, like, I'm not that far. I don't see things that have happened there, but maybe in the future, because I'm becoming more open to it. I don't know. Like, it's just, when the point being, when you feel that feeling, it. You just know that feeling. It is a different feeling. There's an energy in these rooms or in these houses that is very unexplainable, and I understand it.
It is. It's so hard to separate that feeling from, you're going into a haunted place. Now at the Oliver house, you didn't get it until you went into that specific bedroom, so you can kind of rule that out. And I don't really remember what happened in that bedroom. I'm sure somebody probably died. With these old houses, people die in pretty much every room. Whenever you have generations and generations going through, deaths could be all over the house. But the areas that have terrified me the most, like I got that feeling in certain buildings at Penhurst, where it was certain buildings just felt like buildings, and certain buildings felt like something bad happened there. Yeah. But it's so hard for me mentally not to be like, well, bad things happened here because you did research on it. This. Like, for instance, I went to the Freetown State Forest yesterday just to get some footage and wrap things up. And I couldn't get out of there fast enough. Now, this is the woods where people have been murdered in, so it's a little bit different because it's still the woods and you just don't know. But
that's a great one, though, because myself and you years ago were doing a thing on the Bridgewater Triangle and the Freetown State Forest. And I remember the two of us being there and having this feeling and talking about it back then, before we even really understood what we were feeling. Like, it feels weird here, right? Like, and it's different than, I mean, I take my dog to a pond in the woods almost every day, and I don't get that feeling there. When you get to the Freetown State Forest, like, there is a heaviness as soon as you step out of your car and you start walking down that one big path. It is it's a very distinct feeling.
It is. And it's like, from what I've seen, I mean, the Freetown State Forest is massive. It's massive. We haven't even come close to seeing the whole thing. Right. So I entered from a different entrance than we entered last time. I was on the Blue Trail. I don't know. There's like 25 miles of trails, so who knows what. But now, mind you, I have a phone on me. I have GPS. Phone's fully charged. I have plenty of service out there. I was so nervous about getting off that main path and going down a trail that I was going to just get lost. That I don't know. I was in the woods where people get murdered all by myself. So maybe I was getting in my own head there, but I was just so sure that I was going to take one wrong turn and just get myself lost, and that would have been the end of me. So I was very careful, but it might have just been, the reputation getting the best of me. So Allison brings up that the second floor of the Oliver house has a weird vibe. Now, she just went there the other day, while she was doing her little tour of Massachusetts and New England. And that was actually the room that you were talking about was on the second floor. So there's some consistency there for sure.
Exactly.
The third Rachel B. This is Rachel. Her maiden name is B. So it's funny. We have lots of Rachel B. Says, creepy ghost behind me, Dave. That is my wife, Kate, here.
Hello.
Hi.
And
all right, let me split this screen here so we can actually see Kate, so she can come on and tell us a little bit about it. Come on in.
Okay, we need to check some microphone settings. Can you tell me the name. Kate, just while we check the microphone, can you tell me the name of the town next to you right now?
Come on in, Kate.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, that's what happens when you talk. We can hear the words.
Well, I did just have her muted. So.
Oh, did you?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
Are you guys gonna fix this? What are we doing
How do I get off of Small Dave? I don't even know. Is it this one? Okay, there we go. All right, welcome back. Welcome to the show, Kate.
Oh, thank you.
Yes. All right, Kate. Say Carver. Just do it for me.
Why?
Because that's what everyone wants to hear.
Kava.
There it is. All right, so tell us your experiences growing up around this house.
I feel like you always just had just like somebody's watching you, just like what Courtney said. I don't know, something just seemed off, but it wasn't all the time. Like my big experience that I went through is what really got me to believe, because the fact that after I had done my makeup and the light dimmed out and I just like scooted out of there really fast because it just felt really uncomfortable. When I watched whatever it was that like went across, my head literally turned and watched it. And I was like, it wasn't something where like your eyes were playing a trick. I literally watched it and my head turned watching it going, this thing's going in the closet or the attic. And it was spooky.
That is spooky.
We were always there on family events and stuff. So never really.
How old were you when you were told or started having feelings about the house?
High school.
Oh, so that no one told you anything until you were.
Not really. I mean, you're not going to go around telling, all the little kids like this house is haunted.
I don't know, dude. I'd want to know. I wanted to know. My gram didn't tell me till I was 8 till we had an experience. Like,
I feel like
tell me there's ghost here so that I understand what's going on.
Well, like all the adults probably had an idea that something was like going on there with all the experiences, but I feel like after a while, so people are just going to have their own experiences and just kind of believe whether or not from there.
So out of everyone that was like living in the house or on the Bricado compound there, how many people experienced hauntings?
It's hard to put a number on it. I would probably say a handful, because I know some people saw stuff at parties that maybe have not said anything. I really couldn't put a number on it. A good handful, honestly.
That's a good point too. A lot of people will see this stuff and they just won't tell anybody.
Oh yeah,
because they're just sitting there. They're trying to be like, well, there's so many people here. Maybe it was this or maybe it was that, and they don't really want to say that they saw a ghost because there's still the skepticism and they're worried about being made fun of for it, right?
Well, it's that, and it's like when you're in somebody else's house, you don't know what noises are going to happen regularly, whether it's the heaters clicking or something like that, or there's the ice cube thing could be making ice cubes at a certain time and
just rapping.
Right. So there could be these noises that go on regularly at a house that if you don't know that it's not an everyday thing, you could be like, wow, I heard something. Or you just assume that something that you heard was not paranormal, and it could have been. So it makes sense. And also, I mean, you're rarely are you going to have a house where 100% of people that live there or visit there have experienced something paranormal. And when you do get a case like that, I think that makes it less credible, because then you're like, everyone is just making stuff up, or everyone is seeing what they want to see there. So
I always felt like, because I never really talked about it until, like you start getting more curious about stuff, and then you start talking about it, and then you're like, you hear it from another cousin, like, oh, I had this experience. And then you're like, oh, no way, and then more and more stuff's coming out about it. And then you realize like, you're maybe not as crazy after all, because, I think Courtney pointed out too, that she wouldn't have believed any of this stuff, but she lived through it and it made her a believer.
Mm-hmm. Is there any story other than your own, obviously the one that you were telling, is there any story from another family member that just stood out to you, or something that somebody said?
My Nana's got a pretty crazy story that I don't think Dave had mentioned. Because when we reached out to her the other day, just to kind of get, the histories, because obviously Nana knows everything. She knows all the birthdays and everything else. So she remembers everything. She had mentioned that very shortly after my great grandmother died, her mother, she was home with the dog and my brother, and they were just hanging out, and they heard somebody run up the stairs, and they were like, my brother was like, "Is somebody here?" And she's like, "No." And they call my dad. My dad's like, "You guys are crazy. There's nobody in the house. I don't know what you're talking about." But them looking around, there was nobody there, but like just weird instances afterwards like that. And she said it was a very short period of time, and then it just didn't really happen after that.
Your dad's a pretty no-nonsense guy. Does he believe that the house is haunted?
I don't know. I don't know if he'd ever really tell me if he thought it was. I know he did mention the smoke smell. So I don't know, maybe that was the only justification I get out of that, that he like, kind of believes, But that's about it. I don't know. Like, I've also heard that it might be more so the property that is haunted and not just the house. Because my aunt said she has seen possible things out in the woods too. I mean, it's a very old land in town, so you never really know what is actually there.
Yeah, and we're gonna hit on that in a little bit about basically the area and the stuff that's happened in this area briefly. I guess my final question, Kate, would be just how awful is it living with Dave? Is it the worst?
Living with Dave. She's married to him.
I know.
I can't hear you guys.
It's fine.
Oh,
It's
he can't
fine.
hear us.
Everything's great.
Perfect
Yeah, he
time
can't.
to-
Yeah.
That's why it's the best. Is he just can you tell us how short he is? Just for everyone to hear.
What do you mean? He's taller than me.
Give him back the headphones and then let him know that we have convinced you to get a divorce.
Yes.
Let him know that that's it. It's over. So,
Oh, all right.
Perfect.
Thanks, guys.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
All right. So that was Kate Wilkins. Thank you so much for joining us on the show and telling us your story. Dave, good luck with the court and legal system with everything that we've convinced there. So that's the Rainham house and the hauntings that have happened there. Absolutely terrifying. And it kills me that place burnt down, because after hearing all this and then doing what we do, I'm like, damn, I would have loved to investigate that place and see what's going on, because that one irks me. That and the fact that we don't have the Bridgewater house anymore. It's like we're losing all the good ones, boys.
Yeah, we need to become millionaires so that we can buy back the Bridgewater house and then buy Kate's family's home and kick them out on the street.
Yeah.
Terrible person. So I did mention that I went to the Freetown State Forest. I think we jump into some of the hauntings here. So while the Route 44 ghost is like the most popular when you hear about the Bridgewater Triangle, or at least that's usually the first one that's mentioned, the Freetown State Forest probably has the darkest and most insane history. And it starts with obviously the murders that have happened there. You have a ton of suicides that have happened in this forest. If you look up, and I was surprised actually, I was just trying to find some pictures of some of the stuff that happened inside the Freetown State Forest that were connected with the Mary Lou case. And when I was looking at like the charts, I mean, this place is ranked not only just as one of the most haunted forests in Massachusetts, not just one of the most haunted forests in America, it's actually ranked as, it's in the top 10 on most websites as one of the most haunted forests in the entire world, which surprised me. I mean, it makes sense with all the stuff that's gone on here, but I was kind of shocked, especially when you look at some of the forests, obviously in like the UK and over in Europe, Japan, where you have thousands of years of history, as opposed to the United States, where on the books we only have a couple hundred years of history. So it was surprising to see. But
we only have a couple hundred years of history.
That's why I said on the books, right? So it's obviously been here. I don't think it was,
but there's been Native Americans on the land, and that's part of this whole Bridgewater Triangle. Is the Native American presence in this area goes back way longer than we, know or have any documentation on. And I think that's why you get so many haunted hotspots, is this land has been inhabited on the East Coast far longer than we know.
Right.
Exactly.
I think population comes into that too. Like when we say such and such land is older than such and such, obviously all of the land is exactly as old as all of the other land. But if you look at like Europe, and that was heavily populated while United States was sparsely populated, there could be more hauntings tied to Europe for that reason rather than United States.
That's fair.
Exactly. And then you obviously have some major ones in forests we've covered. I mean, in Japan, we've covered at least one of those, and then we'll cover more as we continue to dive into haunted forests. So this one, we could briefly touch on the Mary Lou case. I went over it pretty heavily, and the hauntings that are attached to it, there isn't much. People say that they hear screams from the forest. That could be anything. It's hard for me to say that's got to be haunted. A screaming forest sounds terrifying, but it could just be people in the forest, right? It could be animals. It could be the sound of a rabbit getting killed could be mistaken for a person screaming. It could be any number of things, or it could be ghosts. But for them to say that must be the ghost of Mary Lou Aruda is like, well, what makes you come to that conclusion? It seems like they're just trying to draw a ghost story to that horrific case, which is such a sad case. And what a piece of shit that guy was. He was so guilty in the fact that he just kept like finding legal loopholes to get himself, they basically cause like a mistrial or something like that. But they basically found him guilty like 4 times. Yeah. And it's, I don't know how it kept getting back, to court. You can't be tried for the same thing twice, but he was 4 times.
Well, it was if it's appealed and the Supreme Court upholds the appeal. But you can't get found not guilty and then get tried again. The thing is, he was getting found guilty and then appealed. Yeah. So that's how they tried again.
Oh, okay. I gotcha. Yeah, they were getting thrown out because the first time they had used hypnosis on one of the witnesses that had seen his car leaving, and they're like, okay, can you look in the rearview mirror and give us a license plate number? And she actually got 2 of the numbers off the license plate, which helped them.
I'm not on this guy's team at all. I'm glad he's dead, and I'm glad he's end up getting the justice he deserved. But I'm glad that got tossed out. That's a terrible precedent, a legal precedent to set, that you can get a guilty conviction on the grounds of hypnosis because they got 2 numbers right. That's absurd. Like,
the thing was, besides that, first of all, the hypnosis clearly worked because they were right. This guy is guilty as shit. That's crazy to me. Like hypnosis is like, it just boggles my mind. But
this is more of like a criticism on the police that pulled this crap and the prosecutors to allow it to get to that point, for it to compromise that case, which is just stupid because you put your whole case in jeopardy, and now you let this monster walk on it because of your ridiculous tactics of using hypnosis, and they weren't right. They got 2 numbers of it right. It sounds more like they were just trying to pile as much evidence on as possible, so that they can get their headline. But I just
like the picture that while they were hypnotizing this witness, they ask for the license plate, they get that, and then they're like, and just to prove that they're hypnotized, we're now going to have her walk around the courtroom like a chicken and barking.
Like one of those wacky hypnosis shows. Man, those are concerning as well. I've been to one of those in Vegas. It was shocking. I'm like, I'm so glad I didn't volunteer for this. But anyways, I think I don't think she got like the entire license plate and only had 2 numbers right. I think she was only able to pull 2 numbers from the license plate, and they were correct. So whether it was numbers or letters, again, like that is really shaky evidence to put forward, quote unquote evidence, to find someone guilty and throw them away for life. Again, he's guilty. The first case, why did he only serve 6 years for this? He literally thought he murdered this girl, admitted to it, and it was the same exact thing. This is why they weren't able to use this in the first 3 cases. In the 4th one, the judge finally allowed it, and the victim in that case who survived came in and testified, and that's why he got locked away for that one. That was when they finally found him guilty. He wasn't able to appeal. But
you see this over and over again with sexual assault cases and stuff from this time period and even beyond. The crimes, just the length of sentence never fits the punishment. It's just never long enough.
Especially
sometimes
Massachusetts.
Well, the whole country. Go back and look at any of these cases. People just don't serve time for this stuff back then, and it's disgusting. And
Yeah, well, he got
it's
sentenced
starting to change.
got sentenced to 20 plus years and got out after 6 for that. And then it happens again. The original victim, her mother, called whoever when he was about to be released from prison. She's like, don't let this man out. He's going to do it again. Sure enough, he did it again. And unfortunately, she wasn't able to escape. So the crimes were basically identical. The only difference really, well, for one, is the first victim survived. The second difference was he adjusted. So the first time he used like a bed sheet or a bedcloth to tie around her neck, and she was choked really badly. She was in rough shape, but she was able to slip out once he went away and thought she was dead. The second time with Mary Lou, he used the twine around her neck as well. So pretty horrific case, very sad. Did it actually lead to a haunting? I don't know, but there's so much in this forest that could have led to hauntings as well. So even if you just talk about the ridge or the ledge or whatever, this was a site of a ton of suicides, which is very unfortunate. But they say that there's 18 suicides on the books that have happened here, and there's been several accidental deaths of people slipping and falling off. It's a popular camping spot, so people will camp close to that edge, and whether or not you're stumbling out after a night of drinking and going to go take a piss and you accidentally fall off, tragic, of course. But what's really concerning with this is the haunting, where people who are of sound mind, people who have no history of depression or suicidal thoughts or tendencies or any kind of drug use or anything like that, when they go to this ridge, they feel that they feel driven, like someone is whispering in their ear telling them to jump, and they just keep saying jump, 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 jump. And there was a case with this guy who was, again, had no history of depression. His family swore by it. He was just out there with his girlfriend, and he just turns and just jumps off and ends up dying from internal injuries. It's a tragic case. So it's very, I think
concerning. It supports the theory, the paranormal theory for ghosts, that if a person dies in a place, when the energy leaves their body, whatever emotion that was tied to them at that time is sort of intertwined in that energy, which I think is a pretty fascinating theory. And it supports this phenomenon that happens at this place. If lots of people are jumping off there and lots of them are dying because of it, and all that energy has all that emotion, then that kind of makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, one of the hauntings here, get your bingo cards ready. There's a woman in white. So she is seen at the top of this. It's like a quarry. And she's seen at the top, and then she's seen jumping off. And before she hits the water, her body disappears. Reminds me a lot of the haunting at the Eiffel Tower, where you had a woman in white who jumps off the Eiffel Tower, and before she hits the ground, she disappears. Mm-hmm. So it's definitely a reoccurring thing. And again, it's a woman in white, but lots of ghosts are described like this. So this isn't the only thing at the Freetown State Forest. You have lots of ghost sightings, these weird like balls of light and balls of fire, like this mysterious fire that will float away and disappear. Which ton of UFO sightings as well.
Well, I think the fire one's interesting because we talk about how like a lot of this was Native American land, and we've talked about elemental spirits from that culture in the past. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if there's a tie-in there.
There could be. Yeah, we've talked about that in several cases where you see stuff like that. And actually, when we were investigating the Oliver House, one of the pieces of evidence that we did catch was this kind of weird orange ball of light that we were never really able to identify. We caught it on camera and everything. So that was something that we potentially saw right in the same general area. This is closer to Assonet, which relatively close to Middleborough, but not actually there. But Bridgewater Triangle stuff, or at least close enough to it.
We might have to go back to the Oliver House.
Mm-hmm. I would love to go back to the Oliver House. So there's been a ton of UFO sightings here. One of them was actually by Ronald Reagan. So his plane was flying over this exact area, and they had seen this UFO below them, right above apparently right above the Assonet Ridge. They were flying.
What happened?
They were flying in a plane. What did I say? They were flying in a plane, and they saw a UFO below them.
Oh, below them. It really sounded like you said something else.
I gotta find me one of those UFOs. But it wasn't just him. There was multiple members of a security team that also saw this UFO. They were actually kind of concerned about it because at first you're like, strange flying object is following the president's plane. you should be concerned. But then they saw it was accelerating and decelerating at not normal speeds. It would stretch out and then get small again. So it was a strange UFO sighting. Another case of a prominent figure in politics admitting to something that people might use against him, saying this man is losing his mind, right? He's seeing UFOs. But that is that's one of the more popular cases. But there's been so many cases of UFO sightings. Well, that's not really what this. We don't really dive too much into UFOs on this show, but there's been so many of them that I feel like we got to touch on them. So May 10th, night 17.
Sorry. We'll probably dive into them real deep on a side content or something. But my favorite one is that there was a UFO sighting from the 1700s in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Oh, that's the one I was just about to say. Yeah, May 10th,
beautiful.
1760. Unless you got it in front of you, you want to read it. But
go for it.
This was their first UFO sighting. Multiple people saw what was also described as a ball of fire moving through the air. And then, did you have anything else on that? But
no, just
I feel like 1760s real early, so they might not be able to know what they're describing in the sky, but they described it as a ball of fire moving through the air. Then another one that was a long time ago, Halloween night of 1908, there were two undertakers who were driving a carriage. They were actually driving through West Bridgewater when they saw what they described as an unusually large floating lantern, and they followed it around for 40 minutes before it disappeared. That sounds like it could have been the same thing as what the people in the 1760s described as just a ball of fire, but I don't know. December 1976, there were multiple massive UFOs that were seen by Route 44 in Taunton. And at this point, the local police, the Taunton police, were getting flooded with phone calls. And every phone call were people describing the same exact thing. So if it's just one person on the phone saying, I got a UFO, it's like, all right, buddy, go to bed. But when you have multiple people and they're all describing the same thing, that makes it much more concerning. 1979 was the most active year for the UFO sightings in the Bridgewater Triangle. Local police stations were getting bombarded with phone calls about UFO sightings within the Bridgewater Triangle. Two reporters claimed to see a baseball diamond-shaped flying object. So these were two reporters who were driving around and they see this thing and it was super low to the ground. They said it was so low to the ground that they felt like if they had gotten outside and thrown rocks at it, they could have hit it. So it was obviously very close, but these are two guys who have a reputation to uphold again. But that was that. They said it
Mac
was
Jones probably couldn't have hit it.
He would have thrown it to the wrong UFO. Yeah. One of the reporters, who was named Lopez, he actually served in the Air Force and claimed that he had never seen anything like it. They were not the only ones to see it. More than 30 calls came into the local police stations describing exactly what the reporters saw. Same shape. There was like a weird green, like mist flowing off of it. And it seemed like there was, I don't know if there was something mechanically going wrong with it, but there were like sparks flying out of it as well. So that was one of those. And then another one in 1988, there was a worker who worked in a bog in a forest. Oh, actually, this is more of the Freetown State Forest stuff. This isn't a UFO, but he was making complaints to the local police station that there were figures that were dressed in black cloaks that kept getting closer and closer, approaching his little hut in the forest there. And he felt threatened by them, and the police investigated. They found pentagrams laid out on the ground formed by many stones. So the police, what they did was they just cleared these stones off. They're like, all right, no more pentagram. We're good. And they kept watch. So they kept someone stationed by because this guy's real freaked out. He thinks he's being threatened. So they did keep a police officer close by. And in the morning, he's like, all right, I'm out of here. He goes back over to the area where they cleared the pentagrams, and they were all back again. So kind of a creepy story. So whether or not it was just dark and maybe he'd nodded off, maybe he wasn't paying attention, maybe he wasn't stationed there all night, I don't know. But all I know is that they were back the next day. Pretty creepy stuff. But you also have Bigfoot sightings. I feel like a lot of these other stories we'll save because we're going to have to go back. I don't know if this would be Bridgewater Triangle Part 2, but kind of Part 3. We briefly touched on the Bridgewater Triangle in episode 1 of Hometown Ghost Stories, but did we actually really talk about the Bridgewater Triangle? It's been a long time.
Because it was more specifically for just Bridgewater. So theoretically, yes, everything we talk about in episode 1 is theoretically in the Bridgewater Triangle, but we didn't specify.
I know the lines of the Bridgewater Triangle cut certain towns, but it doesn't encompass the entire town. Is the entire town of Bridgewater encompassed in the Bridgewater Triangle?
It's got most of it. I'm pretty sure it might actually have all of it, which is why they call it the Bridgewater Triangle, because that's kind of the center of it. I believe I'm technically right outside of it. So I'm on like the Whitman-Abington line. Abington is in, Whitman I think is out, but I'm very close.
I think Whitman's in somewhat.
Again, these are kind of arbitrary lines.
Lines. Like there's not a hard line. It's not like you could just go jump back and forth. Like I'm in the Bridgewater Triangle.
Not paranormal.
Not paranormal.
That's not what it is. Basically, it was coined by what was his name? Lauren. I gotta look it up now, or we're gonna get a 1-star review because I look up his damn name. Anyway, so this guy, he was a writer, researcher.
Cohen?
I think so. So he basically came up with this term a number of years ago, and that's where the Bridgewater Triangle got its name. So whether or not it's an exact line, like there's no wall around the Bridgewater Triangle. It's just it is what it is. Anyways, I think we saved the rest for part 2 of the Bridgewater Triangle stuff, which if we keep in line with our Bridgewater episodes, that'll be episode 201. So stay tuned. We only got 100 episodes or 90 episodes to go before we get to that, but
catch you in 2 years.
We might get to it sooner because now I'm all fired up about the Bridgewater Triangle stuff. There's so many other cool stuff, like Profile Rock. I included a picture in the intro video because I thought we would maybe touch on it, but I think we leave that out. Also, it recently fell apart. It's so sad. So we went and visited. We got pictures of it when it was still all intact, but I don't know if the whole thing crumbled, but I know like at least its nose fell off. So that's sad. But Profile Rock is really cool. It's basically this rock that looked so much like a human face. It was terrifying. It was a lot smaller in person than I thought it was going to be, but it definitely looked like a very evil looking human face, in my opinion. Don't know what it looks like now though. Makes me sad. But a bunch of other really cool locations in the Bridgewater Triangle that we'll be able to touch on. You have Dighton Rock, you have Profile Rock, you have all sorts of different places that we haven't covered yet. So plenty of meat on the bone for that. Eric Walker asks, what is next week? Next week is Halloween.
It is Halloween next week. And just for clarification, it's Lauren Coleman is the name of the cryptozoologist that termed the Bridgewater Triangle, I think in 1970. So next week is Halloween, and next week is going to be a very unique Hometown Ghost Stories week, as we will not be live on Tuesday for the normal show. We will be live Monday night for a listener submitted episode. So if you usually watch us on Tuesday nights, guess what? We're going to be live on Tuesday night too. You know why? Because we're going to do our horror movie review live. We're going to cover the movie Halloween, the original one. And I'm going to give you guys a little spoiler alert. Me and Dave do not agree on this movie. So
correct.
We've actually started this argument about 5 times and we've stopped ourselves so that we can have it on the show. But we do not agree. I don't know where Jesse stands at all on this. I kind of want to keep that a secret until the episode, but me and Dave are on opposite sides of this one.
We are. So if you haven't seen the original Halloween, watch it. Also, if you haven't seen Rob Zombie's remake, you should probably watch that too, because there's a 0% chance it's not going to be referenced. So if you're really in a Halloween mood, which you should be, what?
Why? Because we're going to review that at some point in the future. Why would we talk about it next week?
We're going to talk about it next week. So
no.
Well, you're not going to stop me. I won't spoil. I mean, you've seen one, you've seen them both technically. Even you can't really spoil. It's a remake, so. But
Chicago
it'll be referenced. It won't be.
Chicago asks, how can we send in a story? The answer would be, you can email it to us. You can send it in on Discord as well. So if you're a member, I believe you're on Discord, so you can just drop it in we have a text channel for your ghost stories. You can drop in there or email it. But anybody else that has
stories at gmail.com.
Exactly. Anybody else that has a true ghost story that you want to share, you can do it anonymously if you want to. We've done a couple of these and they've quickly risen to the top as some of our most popular episodes, actually. So we're doing your ghost stories. We read them out, then we talk about them after. And you can submit them anonymously if you don't want to attach your name to it, which is perfectly fine. We'll just say that it's an anonymous story from whatever town. Here's the exact address and their full name.
Yeah.
We'll keep it anonymous. It's perfect. No, I'm kidding. But obviously, we will legitimately keep it anonymous for you. And we thank everybody that has sent in ghost stories before and that plan to. Now, we won't be able to do all of them. So if you don't get your ghost story read out on the show, don't take it personal. If we were to do all of them, it would be a 24-hour episode, which is what we plan to do for Halloween. It's a marathon. Get ready.
This is the shit that Jesse would spring on us. So it wouldn't shock me if he was actually planning this.
Guess what? We're doing a 24-hour show. Oh, my God. Oh, I would shoot myself 2.5 hours into it. Speaking of 2.5 hours into it, we should wrap this up.
I got some
to read.
Yeah, I got a couple of reviews to read, and then I just want to do another quick round of thank yous. So this first one is from Smidusky, and it's great balance of campfire story and ... because Apple iTunes does not let me see the full title if it's too long. And it says, if you like a little bit of fact versus fiction with a campfire twist, this podcast is definitely worth a listen. I look forward to it every week. They have great banter and chemistry and are very kind to their fan base. This next one is from NPS, titled Greatest Podcast. OMG, I started listening to this podcast in August 2023. I love the podcast. Keep it up. If you do a podcast on New Jersey at some point, I'd love to hear it. And what I will say to that is we have one New Jersey episode, so you can go and check that one out. But there will be plenty more New Jersey episodes. And this one is from I'm Better Than You. And I'm Better Than You gave us our 400th Apple iTunes review.
Hey.
And it's titled Great Show. And I was excited for our 400th review until I read this. And they wrote, I love this show. These guys are great together. Also, Rob kind of sounds like Ray from Everyone Loves Raymond. That's not true. I sound like Kermit the Frog.
Sounds like Kermit the Frog. Only Kermit the Frog.
Only Kermit the Frog.
That's it.
That's what I sound like. So,
Rob, do an impression of Rob Coakley not doing an impression of Ray Romano.
There's too much going on with whatever you just said. Yeah.
Give it a shot.
I don't know what you said. I don't know.
Well, I can't ask you to do an impression of Ray Romano because your default voice is an impression of Ray Romano.
I have to watch the show again. I don't
okay.
remember. I just want to go like, I write for the newspaper.
Nailed it. Thank you so much for doing that.
Talk about sports in the newspaper. I have kids. I jingle my keys. This is the Ray Romano jokes I know.
You know so much more than I do, but gotta say those weren't great. All right. Do we have any other ones?
No, those are all our reviews, but I do just one more time. We hit over 100 episodes. We started this podcast 2 years ago, almost 2 years ago. We're 6 days away. Our very first episode went live. We went live on the 30th of October with 0 viewers for the first one, obviously. I mean, who's going to know about the show, right? And it's just ballooned way beyond what any of the three of us thought it would be at this point. So if you're listening to this or watching this, whichever way you're doing it, I just want to thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that showed up to the pretty much our first live event, technically this past Friday, which we plan to do many more. You guys are the best. Our fans, our listeners are the absolute best. And we honestly would not still be doing this without all of you. So thank you for making this possible.
Yes. Thank our patrons as well. For our VIPs, we have Allison V, Anna C, Dakota G, Donnie N, Glitter Tees, Cami from Washington. We have Jeannie R, Jennifer P, Joseph S, Lisa J, Mal, Mike Oubliette, Blake, Mom and Pops W, Nick, Robert H, and Demon King, as well as Inspires Gaming. Thank you so much for being VIPs. For the Warrens Wards, we have Ambi Rose, Kath Q, Chris Connolly, LBPS founder, next HTGS guest. We have DC, Elizabeth Young, Eugene M. We have Lily. We have I Hate Rob. We have Jake V, Janice G, Jake the Folder King. We have Marfire, Papa Squatch. We have Rachel B. We have Rob Sucks at Video Games. Very true.
God damn it.
We have Sarah Cook. We have Siobhan Not Sharon. We have Steph A. A of the Church of the Stephanies, Stitch Kitten, Sydney B, the other Rachel B, Adam S is in our Ghost Pirate Mafia, as well as Al Capone. We have Al Capone versus the alleged haters and one-star reviewers, and sometimes ACDC.
Get him, Al Capone.
We have Al
That was a
Capone's
paragraph.
We have Al Capone's allegedly poorly taxidermied wife, which sounds like such a short name now. We have Alicia E. We have Anthony, insert inside joke here, T. We have Arcade Hunters. We have Ashley M. Brandon W. Captain McSlugs. Colby has a shortened name. We have Crystal Quinn. We have Ghost Stories of the Paranormal Podcast. We have Huska. Huggy Bear, Joe R, Julie S, Kelly C, Carly J, Marie R. We have Mark Twain and the Haunted Grape. We have Mina H, Mariah M, Paul from St. Louis Pork, Rob's disappointed inflatable friend.
Wait, this is a reference to something.
It is a reference to something.
Is it?
Yeah.
We made jokes. We made jokes. We have R.
Also, I take back all my thanks. Fuck all of you for all of these names.
We have Sam from Nepal, Sharon V. We have Shitsky Dave, Solar Flare, Soph M. We have Hooper, the Big Spag Nasty. We have the Black-Eyed Gingers, allegedly poorly taxidermied Puckwudgie. You've gotten so fast at this. We're not even done with the show. We have Wayne Christie as well. Thank you so much for being members on Patreon. For as little as $3 a month, you can join in on the fun and get early access to bonus content and just bonus content in general. You get all sorts of fun stuff. You get to see some exclusive pictures and stuff as well.
If you're a Patreon member right now, you can go see the highlight clips of the actual investigation at the S.K. Pierce Mansion. Mm-hmm. So there's 3 different ones. The $10 tier and up got an extra video. But if you wanted to see all of the investigation videos, you can do that on Patreon.
Yep. And all the ad-free episodes are archived there. You can go click on the little playlist for that. I also posted some pictures that I took inside the Freetown State Forest. Very creepy place. I was pretty terrified. Did a couple live streams there. I don't know how well it was streaming because the service wasn't great, which is why I got out of there before I perished and was never able to return to this show. Anyways, I think that'll do it, gentlemen. Anything else?
That's going to do it for me. This Friday, we're reviewing Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a movie that Mr. Jesse Wilkins had never seen. So it'd be cool to see his take after seeing it 40 years too late.
We'll see you guys on Friday. Thank you and happy Halloween.
What another terrifying episode of Hometown Ghost Stories. I, for one, have goosebumps. Can you see them through the tattoos? Probably not. That's okay. What I need you to do is press that like, that subscribe button, then notify it so that you know when we go live. Sometimes there's secret live shows. That way you can jump in, join the chat. We do these video game streams that I've absolutely never died on. Not once. It's never happened. So if you want to see that, make sure you're notified. You can also get some merch. Go to hometownghoststories.com. Join the Discord. I've pitched everything that we have here. Please help the show out any way that you can, and we will catch you next time here at Hometown Ghost Stories.